Your vote in the next election might not even count if a court can just hit a massive delete button on an entire statewide referendum over a procedural technicality. I mean, imagine showing up, casting your ballot, winning the fight, and then an unelected panel of judges completely throws the whole thing out.
$93 million. Just let that sink in for a second. Almost $100 million of campaign donations and public tax money just vanished into thin air. It didn't fund schools, it didn't fix roads. All of that cash was basically set on fire because state lawmakers made a literal 4-day calendar error.
And that right there is the reality of the situation. A constitutional amendment that would have fundamentally shifted the entire balance of power in Congress was completely erased just because somebody missed a deadline. This one simple oversight torched a massive political strategy. So to really grasp the sheer scale of this failure, we have to look at the exact mechanics of how it went down.
Okay, so back up a bit to the 2025 elections. Abigail Spanberger pulls off a historic win in the Virginia governor's race, which hands Democrats the ultimate political prize, a trifecta. They got control of the governorship, the state house, and the state senate. Sitting on all that power and watching Republicans aggressively redraw mid-decade maps in places like Florida and Texas, Virginia Democrats decided to fight fire with fire. They launched a ruthless counter-gerrymander master plan to totally rewrite the state's congressional lines and build a firewall against national Republican gains.
The sheer audacity of this strategy, which they dubbed the 10-1 scheme, is wild. The whole goal was to take Virginia's current, highly competitive 6-5 map and essentially wipe out the toss-up districts. By strategically shifting just a few key suburban and city borders, they engineered a map guaranteed to deliver 10 Democratic seats out of 11. They were actively attempting to flip 4 current Republican seats practically overnight.
When you zoom in on a neighborhood level, it's like a giant puzzle designed to rig the board. Take the 7th District, for example. Political insiders jokingly call it the lobster because of its shape. They took those lobster claws and stretched them deep into the Shenandoah Valley to scoop up specific blue-leaning suburbs, creating an ultra-safe Democratic seat. On the flip side, they took rural Republican voters and packed them all into the 9th District, appropriately known as the Sink. They literally isolated all their voting power into one tiny single corner of the state just to dilute their influence everywhere else.
So, the plan was aggressive, it had massive funding behind it, and it was moving fast. Honestly, way too fast. To pull off a map change mid-decade like this, the legislature had to pass a temporary constitutional amendment. And in their absolute unchecked rush to push this through and get it on the ballot for voters, they literally tripped right over their own state constitution.
This timeline is exactly where the so-called master plan completely fell apart. In Virginia, early voting for the general election started on September 19th. Over 1 million people had already started casting their ballots. But the legislature didn't actually hold their first vote to approve this new redistricting amendment until October 31st. That is days, weeks even, after voting was already in full swing. Which brings us to Article 12 of the Virginia Constitution. It explicitly states that an amendment must be approved by the General Assembly before an intervening election of the House of Delegates. Republican lawmakers immediately pounced on this fatal flaw. They pointed out that the Democrats voted on the amendment during the election period, not before it. They took it straight to the state Supreme Court, and the court agreed. The tripwire was hit, and the judges nuked the entire plan.
Now we really need to slow down and look at a completely overlooked, frankly mind-bending angle raised by the dissenting judges here. They warned about something called an infinite voting loop. Think about it. If an election legally starts the exact second the very first early ballot is cast, which is a 45-day window in Virginia, then the state legislature is basically paralyzed for months every single fall. Any law or action they take during that massive early voting window could be challenged in court as illegally interfering with a live election.
It really makes you step back and look at the bigger picture. Just a few years ago, Virginia voters overwhelmingly approved a nonpartisan commission to draw fair maps. But the second a political party secures enough structural power, those so-called nonpartisan rules are treated like mere suggestions. The maps get scrapped, the rules change, and suddenly unelected judges are holding the ultimate delete key over the will of the voters, striking down a map that citizens technically approved at the ballot box.
And the fallout from this decision goes way, way beyond local state borders. That April special election, the one meant to approve the now doomed map, became an absolute proxy war for control of the entire United States House of Representatives.
We are talking about $64 million in Democratic dark money going head-to-head against $29 million in Republican dark money. National groups tied straight to party leadership poured an unprecedented flood of cash into Virginia, literally just to fight over this single referendum. And because the court completely threw it out, that $93 million bought absolutely zero legal change. It was just complete, wildly expensive vapor.
But then, the story takes a really dark twist. Right as this map was getting struck down, the FBI launched a full-blown corruption probe. They executed search warrants on the office and businesses of State Senate Leader Louise Lucas. She was the chief architect who fiercely championed this exact 10-1 plan. Now, to be clear, no charges have been filed yet, but this injects some severe criminal suspicion into an already chaotic political meltdown. You can absolutely guarantee that every single opposing political ad is going to frame this entire redistricting effort as a massive corrupt scheme.
So, the immediate fallout for the 2026 midterms? Pure logistical chaos. The court forced the state to completely revert back to the old 2021 maps, which means candidates who spent months raising money and knocking on doors in these newly drawn districts are waking up today to realize their districts don't even exist anymore. They're being forced to move, drop out entirely, or completely recalibrate their campaigns. And on a national scale, the Democrats' clear path to grabbing those 218 seats they need for a House majority, that path is now severely, structurally threatened.
Because the state is reverting to a highly competitive toss-up map, national donors are straight up going to panic. Both parties are going to scramble. They're going to flood Virginia's restored battleground districts with an unprecedented tsunami of cash to try and make up for the advantage they just lost in that courtroom. Without a doubt, Virginia is about to become the single most expensive midterm battleground in American history. Ultimately, what we are watching right now is the very definition of democracy being litigated on a calendar. Should an election be defined strictly as that single Tuesday we all show up to the polls? Or does a government effectively lose its power to change the rules the very second the first early ballot is cast? I really want to know where you draw the line. Tell me your specific prediction in the comments below. How does this precedent change the rules of the game in your own state?
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.